community organizer at the Childhood Lead Action Project. I'm here to testify on behalf of the Childhood Lead Action Project in support of Bills 6201, 6238, and 6239. We also submitted written testimony on these bills. The Childhood Lead Action Project has been around for 30 years. Our mission is to eliminate childhood lead poisoning in Rhode Island, and we're the only organization, we're the only organization in Rhode Island focused specifically on lead poisoning. We work with hundreds of families over the years. We do direct support, we talk to people about lead poisoning, and we also work with city governments to enforce the lead poisoning laws that we helped to pass 10 or 15 years ago in this state. Lead poisoning is entirely preventable. It's a significant children's health issue. I'm not going to repeat things you've heard already, but it's one that's preventable, and we know how to prevent it. It has a straightforward answer. Remove the source of the lead. Make sure that places are safe for people to live. We have great laws that already require these things, and you'll eliminate lead poisoning. We're in the job to put ourselves out of business. That's why we're out here, to make sure that we don't have any more of these problems coming up. Like I said, we've helped lots of families who were in lead poisoning crises, including some of the families you've heard about tonight, and we're lucky to work with some of the other organizations in this room to be able to do that work together. As you've heard, renters in particular are at high risk from lead poisoning because they don't have direct control over their living circumstances, and they don't get to make the decisions about what happens in their homes. I especially do want to talk about 6239, the registry bill, because it's something that finally would put in place a way to proactively enforce lead laws we've had for 15 years. You've already heard about the high rates of non-compliance in rental housing, even though we have some of the best laws in the country around this. And I know that you've heard a little bit from the Attorney General's office about other states that have done this proactive enforcement well, but we actually don't have to look for other states. We have examples right here in Rhode Island of how this could work. The city of Central Falls has been using a point-in-time list of non-compliant properties that was produced for them by the Department of Health. That list is 900 properties, thousands of units. They've been using that list for the last year and a half. They've brought more than 400, probably close to 500 units into compliance in the last, I think, 16 months by using that list, because they actually know where the properties are. They know that they're not compliant. And last I checked with the city, they've done that without charging a single fine. That is almost 500 apartments made safe for children to live in without fining landlords, because they have the data that this bill would present to the entire state. And they're able to work with those landlords, refer them to financial resources. Many of the landlords they talked to had no idea this was even a requirement. This bill is not only about helping tenants, it's about making sure that we know where there are people who are providing a business, renting out their home to a tenant, and can provide them with the information they need to be able to do that in a safe way, where they won't end up getting sued by the AG's office for hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. We need this package of legislation to incentivize compliance, but also to provide those resources to property owners. I won't get too much into many of the other details, but I am happy to answer any other questions about our work with code enforcement departments in all the core cities, about our work preventing lead poisoning for the past 30 years, anything you want to know that is in more detail specifically about lead, Rhode Island's lead laws, or what it's like to actually be the people working on the ground with these. And then I do want to say, on behalf of myself as a Providence renter, so not on behalf of my work, on behalf of myself as a Providence renter and also a member of Direct Action for Rights and Equality's Tenant and Homeowner Association, I would also like to state my support for the Tenant Bill of Rights 6062, Tenants' Right to Counsel 6129, and Fair Housing 6197. I have been a renter in Providence for many years. I am not originally from Rhode Island, but part of the reason I moved to this state is because I wanted to live in a state that had better protections for people. I want to raise my family in Rhode Island. I would really like to see some of these things passed so that I know that my rights are protected. And yes, so I want to say that I also have worked with lots of tenants outside my job. I've done tenant organizing on my own time. I've heard many, many stories like the ones you heard tonight. Just when you think you can't hear another story like that, I hear from somebody else who's telling me the same thing. They have cockroaches, they have mushrooms, they have lead. Their landlord is harassing them, calling them slurs, charging them much increase in rent. I hear about landlords who tenants who are getting defrauded because they don't know who their landlord is, and a guy is coming to their door every month and taking their money, and it turns out that person is not the landlord of their apartment. This kind of thing is happening all the time. If you haven't been a renter in a while, maybe you forgot, but I hear these stories at my job and from my friends and from my neighbors and from people I talk to constantly. These are really important pieces of legislation. I thank you for your time, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gemma. David?